All right, hello. Continuing with a lifetime of work. How do you like my t-shirt? Einstein invented voice to skull. Sometimes it is a cloudy day. I want to make sure Big Brother knows which one I am. You know what I'm saying? Just having a little fun. This is could be very unpopular with a lot of people, but my grandfather was in the Battle of the Bulge. My uncle's a colonel in the Air Force. I've had a lot to do with the U.S. military. So, this is a theoretical thing. Wait until you hear all of it before you make your decision if you can. It's been bugging me a long time. I studied World War II when I was a kid. I say studied. I read what they allowed to be read about it because people don't understand that our history, for most of us, is from the TV. And, there were two movie corps in the World War II, and one was the U.S. and one was the Germans. They filmed everything. I mean, one of my first theories is they filmed so much that these could be actors, and they were talking to them by radio, living in France. You know what I'm saying? And then I realized how much Hitler was hopping around during his speeches, which they thinned some of them out since I found that, but he was hopping around like he was on EMF. And that's been done to me and many targeted individuals. And it looked raw, like in the early in the development. And I said, you know what? They might have been controlling them. So that's another video where I show they actually, I believe, were controlling them from Potsdam when Einstein invented voice to skull. But in the meantime, this is about the Normandy theory. There's a bunch of them. Operation Overlord. Why did Eisenhower decide to attack cliffs? Well, first of all, Rudolf Hess was Hitler's second in command, and he knew how to fly, and he flew over there in 39 or 40. I think it was 1940. And he was a prisoner, supposedly, of British intelligence the whole war. But see, if there was a conspiracy now, then he wasn't really a prisoner. He was inside information. The British had the first radar along the coast, so they were in a position to use Tesla's and really Faraday's technology in this war. I believe they did it in World War I, World War II, and now. Another thing for another video is the English conspiracy. They're cousins, so, Hitler didn't want to invade them. Well, they left all their arms at Dunkirk. And here's an example of tanks that they left behind and the Germans retrofitted and used. And I've got over here a whole page of that. This is equipment that the British left behind and the Germans used. And they went home and they had nothing. I saw a special where an old guy said he had one artillery piece to defend 12 miles of coastline in Britain. This is all stuff they left behind and the Germans repurposed. Rows of trucks. It's crazy. But what they'll show you if you Google it is a row of horse wagons on Dunkirk Beach. You got to be persistent. So that's suspicious. And I do believe, jumping ahead is kind of no way to keep it all. I do believe they took all the ammunition and powder from here and put it on the beach. Put it on the beach at Normandy. Now, not all 5 beaches had to be like I'm going to describe. There might have been a couple fights. I believe easy beaches, the guys walked up and got captured. Why do I think that? Here's another reason. The American Bund. This is America, people. All right. Now, Hitler said that Hess was nuts after he flew over there. They discounted him as mentally ill. Hitler disowned the American Bund a week after the war started. Now, do you think Hitler turned his back on all those people? This is in America with George Washington at the back. They got swastikas everywhere. This is real, and it's a lot of conspirators. So in my theory, for example, the Navy ships that we had in this big armada, they only needed to have a few ships at one beach to pull this off, and that was they had American Bund members join the Navy and not say anything. There's a lot more spy work in World War II than most people want to admit. Now, here's the Armada. I couldn't find really good pictures of this. There's no surprise because, anyway, this is the biggest Armada ever assembled in history. And I understand that they said it was fog that day, and they had this big deception at Pas-de-Calais, and the Germans thought we were coming to Pas-de-Calais. Well, that's bullshit, because somebody on the coastline saw these bastards leave and either used a mirror to signal or radio or took off in a speedboat, and the Germans knew they were coming. And I'll tell you something else about Pas-de-Calais. This is what they had at Pas-de-Calais, fake rubber tanks, 25 miles up or so from the Normandy beaches. Fake ships, fake planes, fake tanks. And everybody knows we got all our stuff from the Germans, the V-wing, the rocket, everything, all our good technology at the time. So do you think that they couldn't look in a magnifying glass at the surveillance pictures and tell that that was fake? I figure they had fake tanks just like that on their side at Pas-de-Calais, and the Panzers were actually at Normandy. All right? Fake planes, fake ships. It's crazy. Now, moving right along. Rommel designed the defenses. He was world-renowned. He wrote a book about tank operations and battle combat even before the war, and Patton was a fan. You might have seen it in a movie. Well, that's true. All right, these are the cliffs. The cliffs here, I do have some more information over there. You might hear it again. 100 to 300 feet. Now, take a good look at these. I could have saved it on the net. All right, yeah, you're going to take a battle pack and a rifle and try to climb that, while Rommel's got gun emplacements every 150 feet. See these gun emplacements they dug up? That's because they don't want you to know. They were every 150 yards, every 150 yards all down the coast. And they had artillery in between them. And there was a road behind the cliff. They had road right along the cliff on the back there. They had loaded with artillery. So you can see if this is all guns and artillery and tanks up here, that they were sitting ducks. God bless America, but I think that this is what they are specialists at. The Germans love to fool people. Now let's take a quick glance at this. They knew the war was ending. They're down here in Germany. They got hundreds and hundreds of subs. The Portuguese all fled Portugal when Napoleon entered, and they did a lot of classic stuff. Like this is Operation Trojan Horse, if they captured our guys and put on our uniforms. They all spoke English. But besides America, they could easily go to Iceland, Greenland, Norway, Scotland and Ireland and England. All these little islands around there. And the thing about an island, if you don't understand what they did in the concentration camps and just wipe out 20,000 people a day, well, there was only like 50,000 people in Greenland. I looked it up in 1945. So they could have wiped out the whole population and be living there. This is before global satellites. Same thing with Iceland. It's theoretical. They could have even done it in Norway, started at the bottom and moved up. They're very methodical. If you look at what they did in Ukraine, that's exactly what they did in Ukraine, went from one town to another, every town in there, and sent a lot of people to the concentration camps and put everybody else to work, and then put Israelites over top of those people to report to them. All right, just a lot of information. They say they were fighting for the heartland of Russia, but if you'll look, America is warmer. Look at America's heartland. Now we know 1,600 came over in Operation Paperclip, scientists, and that sets the trend. And they had 5,000 more that stayed that were POWs. But see, everybody thinks, they heard the rumor that there were English-speaking commandos at the Battle of the Bulge. Well, until 1945, all the English were taught, all the Germans were taught English. It's not funny. I'm just laughing at our own stupidity. I mean, I can't believe it. They all spoke English. That's a BS rumor in case somebody got loose that spoke English. Oh, yeah, that was in the commando group. Nah, that was any one of them. Anyway, all right, moving right along. Just what I was saying, English-speaking Germans at the Battle of the Bulge, they all spoke English. I can't believe the Armada was not spotted leaving. That's BS. They had spies everywhere along the coast. They could signal with a mirror, radio, or a speedboat. But supposedly Hitler didn't want to do it because they were his cousins. Well, they were defenseless. They would have took it. They took every other territory they could take. They even attacked their partner, Russia. They had to know they were coming. Hess was in England. Pas-de-Calais rubber inflatables. How they couldn't tell they were rubber. Do not forget the known use of mind control, like my t-shirt says, by the USA, Germany, and Britain in some of my other videos. So this all could have been manipulated by just emotions, or actual voice to skull was in use at the time. They somehow tricked Eisenhower into attacking fortified positions. Now, what did Patton say in the movie? Fortified positions are a monument to the stupidity of man. Just go around. So what was wrong with the rest of the entire European coastline? They had to shut Patton up and send him to Pas-de-Calais because Eisenhower decided to attack fortified cliffs. And then we believe that stuff today. That's freaking stupid. All right. We just left them sitting there. Rommel, world famous battle strategist, designed the defenses. And possibly Operation Trojan Horse, which is what I'm talking about. The fortified cliffs, 100 to 300 feet, mines, obstacles, artillery, and machine guns. Brilliant Germans act lost in every movie. It's a movie. It's propaganda. They both had film corps. Rommel also wrote a tank strategy book before the war. If there's one thing the Germans weren't confused. My thing is they knew they were going to lose or planned to lose and drew us over to Normandy for a big-ass trap and killed thousands of our men. Supposedly 10,000, I think, if I'm correct, died at the 5 beaches. I have to check that. But you know what? They put our uniforms on and they came over here. They hung around in Germany and finished the occupation. They did it at Dachau, I think. They did it at Mauthausen. These are units that were isolated and were relieved by a small group of American soldiers. Relieved by a small group with nobody around. They have no photo IDs. You go by the name that's on the chest. And so you can buy it if you want to. I'm telling you, there's so many loopholes in this. It's obvious. So let me finish this up if I can. Operation Paperclip, 1,600 scientists by the CIA, 5,000 more POWs stayed in the country. That's 6,600 and their families here that stayed, all right? I think they allowed them to bring their families over too. It's just like in the movie Odessa when he goes to report the Nazis to the German Nazi investigating group. They're actually the Nazis and they come after him. That's how it is. They're in the positions of power. It's actually a much larger planned infiltration without a shot, planned by Germany for our Lebensraum, or fertile lands. His excuse to invade Russia was why they went to Russia too, for their fertile lands. It's in Hitler's book Mein Kampf, and that was Operation Barbarossa. And the Russians killed 1.5 million Germans in the first winter. It was also a good opportunity to flub the numbers and save them to put it in an American uniform and become part of the deep state. Dead soldiers underground. That's when it started. Think about that. All right. The German-American bond, as I pointed out, they were huge. So easy to infiltrate the U.S. military. They just tell the young boys, whatever I can do for Germany, they'll say, well, what we want you to do is join the U.S. military, but don't join up for the bond. You'll be an unofficial member. And they would jump all over it. Back in those days before TV, patriotism was just one of the biggest things there is. It still is, but it was even worse then. I'm the same way. If America asks me to do something, I might do it before you can blink. You know what I'm saying? But I'm a global person. If any other country in the world asked me to do something, I'd try to help them too. Eisenhower was German. All right, and it was his idea to attack the freaking cliffs. It could be, remember, mind control could be influencing some here. But, his last action was to warn us of the deep state. But he didn't do a damn thing about the deep state. So that's mighty suspicious to me. He just let them build it. And then when it was ready, he left. Easy beaches. Our men may have walked into a trap. All right, and then what happened? They get killed or captured. They interview them, take their uniform, train them to Poland, people. All right. Here's the train lines to Poland right here from Normandy Beach. All these train lines end up over here in Poland, baby. All right. And I'm just laughing at the sheer shock of it all. It's amazing. I'm laughing at the genius of it and how we didn't see this. How did we not see this? They had no photo IDs. All our problems today are because of the deep state right here. They try to make us weak with crummy food, with the gender issues, with the crummy economy. When they build a bridge that lasts 1,000 years, 2,000 years, our stuff's falling apart. So like I said, kill or capture, interview, get the uniform. And this is why in Magneto, all right, he found those people in Argentina, and they were Weinbauers and Schneiders. They needed tailors, Schneiders. Because I was like, why are they worried about Schneiders? And then it came to me here a few years later when I was researching it. Right there to fix the uniforms for the people that they killed, battle, torn uniforms, they want to fix them. And, they might have had to adjust the height or whatever, the name tag and whatever, and get them ready for their infiltration. That's why it's so important that they had the Schneiders. It's tough to believe, but my research indicates we were all put to sleep with a Tesla machine. 25 years was added to time to hide their age and identity. Now, you can believe it or not, but a lot of them are walking around here today because of that. If you don't want to believe it, that's fine. But the Tesla machine can put everybody to sleep around the world. It sends a spark around the world. They hooked up everything in the world to that thing. And, it's not really, knowing what that machine is capable of, I do not think it's a stretch of the imagination at all. It would be a perfect cap off to that plot to change the year, and people stop looking for them because they think they're dead. All right, the Normandy coastline, 90 meters, 300 feet in height. U.S. paperclip brought over 1,600 German scientists and engineers to America after World War II. Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency. It was actually the CIA. They're just watering down our history so bad. Everybody knows that, or if they've read about it. U.S. Army Rangers tasked with scaling the cliffs of Normandy on D-Day was primarily the 2nd Ranger Battalion, specifically companies D, E, and F, also known as Task Force A, led by Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder. All right. Now, there's the clickers. Another thing I said on here. They didn't even know each other in the bush. This is the clicker that our guys had to use. 2 clicks, you were American, and 3, you were getting shot, I believe is how it worked. And so that's what I'm saying. They didn't even know who was in the next bushes. And Germans with a uniform that could speak English and knew how many clicks to give, they were in like Flynn, man. These people were from all of America. They hadn't seen each other before. The Germans actually had computers to manage the people in the concentration camps, and people don't know that very well. Dunkirk, they left all their arms for Germany and in Italy. The USA, then they begged for the Lend-Lease from us, where we gave them ships and money, and they gave us all their inventions for that, but I don't think they gave them all to us because they still had the best frequencies for that. All right. They also left them in Italy. Hitler claimed Hess was nuts and disowned the American Bund 1 week after the war. All these people, he said, oh yeah, look at these nuts. All right. They want to work for the fatherland. Some of them are from Germany. Their parents. They would do anything. So for me to say that they got on these ships and surprised these men, here's how it is. Fortified positions with artillery, tanks and artillery on the road behind. All right, rail guns, those big rail guns would shoot 25 miles. All right. They could have had ships in the ocean over here around the coastline, just lobbing them in. They were excellent shots. All right. Could have had a couple subs on the side. All right, so we got subs lobbing. The ships unloaded on their worst nightmare after they hit the ground, they hit the water. We got ships over here lobbing in on them. We got the fortified positions lobbing on them. I didn't even draw lines from all the artillery. Didn't even draw lines from all that artillery. More shots from tanks. And this is the kind of thing that they like to laugh at us about in secret over the years. Yeah, we smoked them. Because that is an excellent plan, but who in the hell would attack a cliff in the first place? They were set up. So you think what you want? There's more to it, but I'm not going to go on. If you want to see one last demonstration right here, if I can do it. All right. Ships. Subs. Our ships. Tanks and artillery. But they tell us every Memorial Day with movies that